Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
Let us make an upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him, and a table, a chair, and a lampstand. So it will be that whenever he comes to us, that he can turn in there. And it happened one day that he came there and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. I want to talk simply from the subject, make room. Make room. The essence of this message is the truth that was communicated in the movie Field of Dreams, where it was, in essence, communicated, build it, and they will come. Build it, and they will come. Because have you ever noticed that if you got space for something, you always seem to find stuff to put in the space? I mean, if you only had a chest of drawers that didn't have but 2 drawers, but then if you get a new one that has 4, how many of you know you're going to find something to put in all 4 drawers? If you move from one house with a small closet and move into a larger house that has a big closet, how many of you know you're going to find stuff to fill up the new closet? I don't think that I've ever been to somebody's house who had a basement and absolutely had nothing in the basement. Now, they might have moved from a place that didn't have a basement, and they moved into a house that has a basement. And if you move into a house that has a basement, you're going to put something in there. I don't care whether it's tools, lawnmower, a bicycle, and old clothes. You're going to find something to put in that basement. It's not going to be empty, because if you build it, stuff will come. If you make room for it, I mean, it's just a principle in science that every space must be filled. It's going to be filled with something. If you, whatever it is that you want to grow in your life, you make room for it in your life. If you want your relationship with your spouse to grow, what do? Make room for it. Come on, don't be shy. If you want your relationship with God to grow, what do? You make room for it. If you want your mind to develop, what do? Make room for it to develop. If you want your body to develop, what do? Make room for it. If you want to earn more money, what do? Make room for it. If you want to improve your relationship with your children, what do? You make room for it. You don't get in life what you really want. You get what you prepare for, what you make room for. There is something about making room for something that actually puts a demand on all of the laws of the universe to begin to bring that thing into your life. Make room, make room. And every time you make room, it's going to cost you something. It will cost you something every time that you begin to make room. Notice how the Bible here says that this woman was a great woman here. She was a great woman. But what I say to you is that whatever you commit to build, you empower to grow. Whatever you commit to build, you empower to grow. If you commit to build your marriage, you empower it to grow. If you commit to build your business, you empower it to grow. She committed to build a house, and she empowered her house to grow. She empowered her family to grow as a result of that. When I was in a smaller place, I committed to build a bigger place even before you showed up. I had to use this very principle that I'm teaching you today. You build it and they will come. You know why I did that? Because when I was praying one day, I already saw you in the spirit before I knew you. I saw you, and I had to build a place for you. It was my faith that saw you before you ever got here, before I knew you, before you knew me. I had faith. I saw you in a vision. I saw it. I couldn't distinguish the faces, but I saw what I'm seeing now. I saw it. That was bigger than where I currently was. And so I had to build it. I had to make room for you. You couldn't come if there were no extra seats where I was. I had to make room for you. I had to make room for you. Whatever you commit to build, you also empower to grow. You empower it to grow. And I want you to know that I believe that greatness, say greatness. I'm talking to great men and great women today. Greatness is measured in 3 dimensions. It's what you do with yourself, it is what you do toward others, and it's what you do toward God. Now just write that in your paper, on your notes, write self and draw a line under that, and we'll put a column under self, and then others, and we'll put a column going down for others, and then toward God, greatness toward God. And I want to I want to give you an acronym for each. An acronym for each. If you're going to be great in yourself, how that relates or pertains to self, great. Here's the G. It means that you must be goal-oriented. All great people that I know are goal-oriented. They have goals in their life. They're goal-oriented. The R is rational. You have to be rational. You can't be an unreasonable person who just ignores certain facts and they ignore other key relationships. You must be rational. You ever dealt with a person and they're mad? You ever notice when people get mad, they become irrational? They start saying all crazy kind of stuff that doesn't even make sense. You can't even argue with the irrational people. Because you say something and then what they respond to you doesn't even make sense. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just hard. Some of you all know these. Just look straight ahead. But the R is rational. The E is evaluating. If you're going to be great in yourself, you must be evaluating. You cannot improve whatever you will not evaluate in yourself. Evaluating. You must be evaluating. And then great people are A, accountable. They're accountable. There has to be accountability in your life. You need to be accountable to somebody to keep you on track even with your greatness. And then the T is teachable. G-R-E-A-T, great. Teachable. You've got to be teachable in your own heart. Teachable. Now let me show you what great is as it relates to others. The G, if you're going to be great, you have to be giving. You see, Mother Teresa was great because she was a giver. She used her life to serve the needs of others. She served others. So if you're going to be great to others, you have to be giving. The G is giving. R is respectful. We don't consider people great who are disrespectful to us. People who are condescending in their attitudes and look down their nose at us. You must be respectful. Other great people, another quality of great individuals is that they are equitable. We don't consider people great if they are not equitable. Equitable. They must be fair, just. They are equitable. A is that they must be accommodating. Accommodating. Great people are accommodating toward others. They're accommodating toward others. It means that they don't just try to do everything their own way. They are accommodating toward others. This is a great person who is accommodating. They are giving, they are respectful, they are equitable, they are accommodating, and then the T is that they are touchable. Great people, they are touchable. They are touchable. They're touchable. And then greatness as it relates to God. In our relationship to God, here's what great, how it spells out. This is just my opinion. But the G is God-fearing. Any great person, they're going to be God-fearing. They will fear the Lord. This is the beginning of wisdom. God-fearing. The R is righteous. They've accepted the righteousness of Jesus Christ by the robe that he prepares and presents to us. He's given to us a robe of righteousness. We're washed in his blood. The E is energetic. You know, when we worship and praise God, you don't just do it where you just, what a mighty God we serve. No. There ought to be energy that you give to God that radiates out of your enthusiasm and your passion for Jesus Christ. You ought to have to feel like you need to put the brakes on sometime just because you're so energetic. You come alive in your worship toward God. You're energetic. This is how you're great. Great people are passionate lovers. You know, David as a worshiper danced before the Lord with all of his might. He wasn't trying to hold back. He was energetic. I wish we had video footage of this so that I would know what to do. Energetic, but the A here is appreciative. It's appreciative. He was a very appreciative. If you find great people, they are appreciative to God for what he brings into their life. And then the T is that they are trusting. They are trusting. And this is great, spelled out toward self, toward others, and then toward God. Toward self, toward others, and then toward God. It's manifested in those three dimensions. But I want you to notice here in verse 8 of 2 Kings chapter 4 that this great woman, this notable woman, that greatness is determined by what you do with what you have. It is determined by what you do with what you have. Greatness is determined by what you do with what you have. And greatness is individual. And it is not measured by the same ruler. Because as Luke chapter 12 and verse 48 teaches us, to whom much is given, much is also required. To whom much is given, much is also required. That tells us that you can have a person who may not have come from anything, and then they did a great deal with what they had, and that person becomes great. It's not measured by the greatness of somebody on another scale, but based on what they received and based on the obstacles that they had to overcome. That's a great woman. Based on what she did, that was a great man. And so it is based not on the heights that you attain, but the obstacles that you had to overcome, the disadvantages that you had to overcome. And you measure greatness by the different adversities, challenges that an individual had to overcome. So you can look at one person who might have wound up and they had $10,000 in their life savings when they wound up at the end of their life, and somebody else might have had 10 million, but both of them were great. So it's to whom much is given, much is also required. To whom much is given, much is also required. And so you've got greatness in you. I am absolutely convinced of that. 1 John chapter 4 and verse 4 says, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. That tells you there's a greater one in you. That means that there is greatness in you. There is greatness in you. And you don't have to feel great in order to be great. Because a woman doesn't feel pregnant initially. It's a while. She doesn't feel pregnant until she gets morning sickness, until she feels a baby kicking in her, until she starts seeing her stomach stretched out of position. But you don't feel pregnant when you're first pregnant, and that's why we have to get our tests, because we don't even know if we're pregnant or not. And so you don't base that on your feeling. But I will say this, that genuinely great people always have the ability to make other folks feel great. They always have the ability to make others feel great. One lady had dinner with one of the prime ministers, one of the past prime ministers of England. And after she finished that dinner, she said, you know what? I left that dinner feeling like that man was the smartest man on earth. And a few years later, she had dinner with another prime minister of England. And she left that dinner and she said, I left that dinner and he made me feel like I was the smartest woman on earth. And he was great because he made her feel great. He was a secure leader with his own abilities in his own life. And so great people make other folks feel great. If you're around great people and then you feel diminished, it's because of their own personal insecurities. But I want you to notice something about great people. Great people. Number one, great people are persuasive. They are persuasive. They are persuasive. You notice here in verse 8, that happened one day, this woman, that Elisha went to Shunem, and there was a great woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food. Now, he wouldn't have eaten had she not persuaded him. She was a persuasive woman. Great people are persuasive. They're not manipulative, they are persuasive. You have to oftentimes persuade people to do what's right for them. You have to persuade people to read their Bible, persuade people to pray, persuade people to have devotion with God. You have to persuade people to eat the right foods, persuade them to exercise. It takes persuasion. They are persuasive. She persuaded him to eat. Now see, she started small and then gradually increased her role in this man of God's life. But she persuaded Elisha to eat. And I am convinced, though, that the harder person that she had to persuade was not Elisha, but it was her husband. She had to persuade her husband. Notice what she said in verse 9. And she said to her husband, look now, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. Please, notice how soft she is, persuasive. Please, let us make just a small upper room on the wall. And let us put a bed in there. Let's build onto our house, baby. And let's furnish it. Now, it was easy for her, I think, to persuade Elisha. But her hard job was in persuading her husband. And she was successful in persuading her husband. She was successful. You see, this tells me that she was not merely a smart woman, she was a wise woman. A wise woman builds her house. A foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. She really tears it down with her tongue. Let me just tell you this. God gave women the power of persuasion. Women hold the power of persuasion. It is the hand that rocks the cradle that rules the world. Don't you mistake and underestimate the power that you have in persuasion. My daddy was a bold leader, but my mother was a meek and a quiet spirit, but she could make that man do whatever she wanted him to do because she was sweet. Men will bend over backwards for a sweet woman. They'll box a mean woman down. I'm just telling you. I'm just trying to give you. You don't want to fight. You're not trying to. Listen, if you act like an opponent, if you act like a man, he'll treat you like one. Be the delicate vessel. Use your power of persuasion. Let me tell you something. The Bible says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, and God gives to all men liberally and upbraideth not. That's one prayer that God said that he will answer for you, that if you ask him for wisdom, God will give you wisdom. And you better start asking God, God, give me wisdom to show me when I need to speak up and when I need to hold my tongue. Hold my tongue. Jesus, help me to hold my tongue. Because it can ruin your house just because you can't hold this tongue. Ask God for wisdom. Ask God for wisdom. And God will just help you to do it right at the right time, in the right tone. It's to say, can I have $25? God will give you wisdom. God will give you wisdom. God will give you wisdom. And that wisdom will cause you to triumph, and it'll cause you to prevail. God will give you wisdom. So great people are persuasive. Women hold the power of persuasion. Don't ever forget that. You've got the power of persuasion. But be careful in how you use it. You need God's wisdom in wielding the sword of persuasion. It is a power that God gives to women of persuasion. This lady persuaded the man of God to come to her house and eat, and she persuaded her husband to allow them to build an extension onto their home and furnish it for another man. Persuasion, and they did it with a smile. Persuasion. They are persuasive. They are persuasive. Secondly, great people are perceptive. They are perceptive. You don't have to tell them everything. There are certain things that they perceive. This woman, not the man, perceived that he was a holy man of God. Women are naturally more spiritually discerning than men are. The woman perceived that this was a man of God. I wish we had more perceptive women now in the world who marry somebody who looks like he's a man of God, but inwardly he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Perceptive women begin to say, you know what, there's something that I'm discerning here. I can't exactly put my finger on it. I don't understand this. This something is just not quite adding up here. And what has been presented to me and told to me here, I mean, it sounded good, and but something doesn't feel quite right. I'm perceiving that there's something that's deeper here than what meets the eye. I mean, everything that they said is okay, but there's something that anybody know what I'm talking about? You ever had some discerning on the inside where you begin to perceive that there is something in here, that they are not everything that they said that they are? But great people are perceptive people. She perceived who he was, that he was a holy man of God. She perceived who he was. Secondly, she perceived what he needed, that he needed food. She persuaded him to eat. She perceived not only who he was, she perceived what he needed. And then thirdly, she perceived what would bless him. What would bless him was building a place to accommodate him. That would bless him. She perceived who he was, she perceived what he needed, and then she perceived what would bless him. And she met all three of those because she was a perceptive woman, a perceptive woman. Great people are not only persuasive, they are also perceptive. You don't have to explain everything to them. They perceive certain things and then they'll meet it. Thirdly, great people are persistent. They are persistent. I didn't say that they are a nuisance. They are persistent. That means that they have a determination to be able to see a project through. Because in one verse here, it'll say that she said, let us make this and build this, and then it's built it as though it was built like in 2 days. But back in that time, I mean, you building onto your house, it probably took a year. When they would build the cathedrals and these big palatial places, it would take them hundreds of years Building is a slow process, so you have to have persistence in whatever it is that you're building, because building is a process. And so it may have taken a year to build this addition onto their home. But it sums it up in one verse, and you might think that it happened just like that, when you need to realize this thing happens by process. Little by little, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. It is a process. Building is done by process. You can't build a great thing in just 2 or 3 months. It's going to take some time to lay the foundation and really build it. So she was persistent. And here is what maturity is. Maturity is the ability to remain committed to your commitment when the emotion that got you excited to begin has passed. Are you listening? That's what maturity is. It's the ability to remain committed to your decision after the emotional excitement has worn off. And there are a lot of immature people that get excited all at the beginning of something, and then when the emotional excitement wears off, all of their commitment is gone because they lack maturity. A mature person will say, I gave you my word, I'll be there. I signed up for this, I'm going to do it. That's maturity. That's maturity. It takes persistence. Great people are persistent in what it is that they attempt to do. So they are persistent. And finally, they are providing. They are providing. Great people, they provide various things. They provide encouragement. They provide inspiration. They provide cheer. They provide needs. They provide provisions, as it were. And you have to ask yourself the question, what is it that I possess that I can provide? I know that you can provide advice. You can provide encouragement. You can provide knowledge. You can provide companionship. You can provide prayer, strength. You can provide emotional support to someone. You might be able to provide physical support to someone. You might be able to provide money. But there's something that you can provide. Great people are persuasive, they are perceptive, they are persistent, and they are providing. This woman was all 4 of these things. She had all of these things working in her life, and she actually made room. She made room. And so when you make room, you'll be surprised what can happen in your life. And I want you to notice this, that when this woman furnished this place, she put a bed there. And in this bed was creating a place of rest. And everybody needs rest. If you're going to be a righteous person, man of God, a woman of God, you're going to have a place of rest. To take a chill from all of the demands of the world, you have to have a place of rest. Secondly, she put a table there. This is a place of eating, where he could eat. This is to be able to nourish his soul. Thirdly, she put a chair there. The chair was a place to study so that he could enrich his mind, his spirit. It was a place to study. And fourthly, she put a lamp there. This is a place of illumination. What good is it to study if you can't see the revelation of anything that you're reading? So there was a lamp that was provided for the illumination of what God could do. And may I tell you that when you make room, God will come. God will show up when you create room. And little did this lady know that when she built a room in her house for the man of God, that it would force that man of God to ask his servant, what is it that this woman needs? She's got to have something. There's got to be something. And this woman was so wealthy that she didn't perceive her own need. But Gehazi, his servant, noticed and said, she's got everything. She's got money, she's got a nice house, she's got means and provision. But he noticed, he said, she has no son. And the man of God, because she made room for him, he said, by this time next year, you're going to have a son. You'll be holding a son.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.